Hi everyone, I'm Joanna.
And I'm Jenny.
And this is Hyphenated, the podcast about living in the hyphen. Oh my god, Jenny. I missed you.
I missed you too.
Did you just hear my clock? I have a really cheap Casio watch that I got for $15. And I don't know how to make it stop beeping every hour. I don't know how to do it. So this is probably going to beep a couple more times randomly during this recording.
I am appreciative of this warning. Casio, damn. What a brand. I used to have a Casio keyboard back when I played piano that one year.
Casio is, I think, the 90s brand.
Is someone named? Do you think someone's named Casio? Like,
I'm sure in Venezuela there's someone called Casio. Piano Casio. I knew a guy called Flower, so yeah.
I knew someone named Telefono.
Yo, for real? Not even a brand? They were just like the abstract concept of a phone?
I mean, I'm sure someone out there's named Southern Belle, but...
Oh, yeah, for
Bell
sure.
South.
Oh, that's so funny.
ATT.
ATT. Oh, my God.
No. Hold on. I just forgot. My sister's gonna kill me, but she doesn't listen to this anyway. Okay, I'm not gonna say who, but someone in her circles that she grew up around just had a baby, and they named the baby Mango.
You know what? Here's the thing. Wait. White people have called their their sons. White people have called their kids fruits in the past. Apple.
Yeah, Gwyneth Paltrow.
But then I think that like Latinos are like, oh, we want to do that, pero como que our culture. Mango, papaya,
Guayaba.
Guayaba. Uy, guayaba sería muy grave.
Guayaba.
Guanábana.
But papaya would be terrible because it has a double meaning in many cultures.
Oh, it does. Yeah. Speaking of who listens to the podcast, because your sister doesn't listen to the podcast.
I'm assuming so.
I mean, trust me, if she listened to it, she would text you about it. Because my brother does not listen to the podcast. I mentioned him in like the last episode, and he never texted me. He got mad because he thought we were shitting on Miami, and he lives in Miami. He loves Miami. And I'm like, you clearly don't listen to my podcast. My sister listens to every single episode and like texts me as she's listening to it. She's like, I love it when Jenny made that joke. And I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. Like, she's the number one fan. My sister is the number one fan. And you know what's funny is like, I'm kind of surprised at who in my family listens and doesn't listen. Mm-hmm. I get it. My sibling, I was surprised my sister listened. Like, my sister listens to me all the days, all the time, every year, always. Like, the fact that she listens to me talk about who I am and she knows me very well is kind of shocking. But then I have like my husband's cousins in South Carolina texting me, listening. I've met them like only a couple times in my life, and they listen to every episode.
Yeah.
And it's like it's interesting to see who listens and who doesn't. And I'm kind of shocked your sister doesn't listen to this podcast.
I'm not. But it's also, I don't know if it's the same reasons. My sister does not have ADHD, but I have a hard time listening to podcasts. So I don't really hold it against anybody who doesn't listen, because I myself have a terrible time doing so for other podcasts. But I'm pretty sure she doesn't, because she never mentions it. She never talks about it. My mom does. My mom listens. But other than that, it seems like mostly it's just my friends.
You know, it's interesting because, on first dates and stuff or whatever, or when you're meeting someone, you don't know how to make small talk. Like, the question you ask after, like, what's your favorite color? Do you like the weather? Where are you from? Is, do you have any siblings? That's sort of like an inherent part of small talk, of like getting to know someone. And for a lot of my life, I felt really insecure about answering that question.
Why?
Well, so I'm really close to my siblings. In particular, I'm like very, very close to my sister. But this is kind of like recent because my siblings are Irish twins, meaning that they are less than a year apart. They went to the same high school. They have the same friends. My brother married my sister's very good friend. So they've had this like really, really connected relationship for their whole life. And I'm significantly younger and we don't share the same mom. So I've always felt like weirdly insecure. It's like all I wanted was to be the third sister and to be like them. But I was so much younger and there was so much of like my family context that was different that like I felt like I was a cheater. I was like cheating my way into siblinghood, you know, como que like the knockoff version of a Louis Vuitton. Like that's what I felt like as a sister. I'm like, I mean,
she has a fake Louis.
Like I look like a Louis, but like it's not real. And that's what I felt like for a lot of my life.
Huh.
And so I sort of have this hyphenated relationship with siblinghood because I felt like an only kid for a lot of my life. I was by myself. We moved around and I didn't have a sibling at home because they were so much older and they had left. And then simultaneously, like, I feel like they're my brother and sister fully. And I'm la tia of their kids. And, like, I never questioned that. So as I've gotten older, kind of like all forms of identity, I've embraced it more. And I've felt like my way of being a sibling might not be the way that my friends had siblings. And my way might be a little different, but that doesn't take away that I'm a sister.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah. You're pretty close to your sister.
Yeah, I am. Only just now as adults.
Really?
Yeah, because we're 6 years apart.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a pretty big age difference when you're kids. I mean, when we were little, we would play a lot. She, like, you know, we would do little performances in la sala, and we were into a lot of the same stuff. I have a lot of fond memories, like laughing our asses off at like a Sinbad comedy special and like watching Powerpuff Girls and shit like that. But as I started getting older and becoming an awkward ass preteen and then going into teenhood when all I cared about was boys and rolling up my fucking plaid skirt to look like Britney Spears, claro, my head was on another level, different wavelength. And she was like, and also I guess people consider me an extrovert. I say ambivert, whatever. Ambivert is in the middle. Literally,
I always
the
thought
hyphen.
ambivert. Ambivert for me sounds like a type of dinosaur, but yeah, I mean, let's just run with it.
You know what? I'll take it. I will take it. Dinosaurs are cool. I'm in between because I do not like to be around people. Like, I know people who are extreme extroverts, and I'm like, I am not that. But I'm also not introverted like a lot of my introverted friends, like my husband, like my sister. So a lot of times my sister would just be in her room, door shut. A lot of my friends didn't even know her that well. They're like, you have a sister? Oh, okay.
They entered your house and there was just this like ominous door that was always closed. And there was like, there's a ghost in there. It's like, no, it's a tiny version of me. It's my little sister.
But then something magical happened called adulthood. And so it really happened when we both moved to LA. I moved to LA about a year or two before she did. And then when she moved out here, I got her a job at Me Too. So then we were also co-workers.
Wow.
And now we just hang out all the time. We go to Disney together. We go to events together. We have like hangout movie nights. Like I truly see my sister as my friend now. Like,
because of adulthood. Like once you're an adult, those esos años that felt eternal now don't seem as eternal. I mean, I don't know. My big brother, he like, it's funny because for him, he still thinks I'm 12.
Oh,
like,
God.
It is the most ridiculous thing sometimes.
How old
like,
is he?
He just turned 40, and I'm 32. For my brother, I'm still 12.
What does he do?
Como que he thinks that I'm gonna die. Like, he's like,
what?
Oh my God, are you sure? Like, be careful. Like, oh my God, are you gonna lose your passport? I'm like, dude, I know how to function in this world. Like, I'm not like a baby. O como que,
my God.
like, he sometimes me regaña. Like, my dad doesn't yell at me. My dad has never yelled at me. Maybe twice in his life. My brother yelled at me my whole life. And every time I'd bring a boy home, my dad would be like, I don't care. Like, you know, you're a sexual person. You know, you must explore
You're
this.
You're a sexual person?
And my brother would be like, who are you bringing home? Who is this guy? Like, no me gusta. Ojo puesto. And I'm like, oh my God, you're like such a, like, it was so. So I feel like my big brother has always been kind of like my dad. Like he took me to get my braces on.
Wow.
He'd pick me up from school when I was feeling sick. He was like in college, and we were both in Boston, and he'd have to like run out of his psychology class to come pick me up because I fainted in PE.
Oh my God.
So like my brother and I have like this, like kind of like I call him. My brain does this thing where I call him Pa Michi because my brain goes to call him Pa,
Oh
and
my gosh,
and then I
that's
have to
interesting.
fix it. So I go Pa Michi every single time, and he calls me Gol Joanna, and Golda's the name of his dog.
Wow, that
He thinks I, but I
okay.
think I like to take it nicely, like, oh, it's this creature I must like attend to and care for and like feed and clean up her poop.
Pero
I don't
coño,
know.
how many times has he almost accidentally called you by his dog's name?
Sometimes he calls his dog Joanna by accident.
Ay, Dios mío. Ay, Dios mío.
Dude, siblings, I think it's such a bizarre relationship. Like there's
My
so many
sister calls
different
me
types.
Tata.
Tata? Why?
It's like a Cuban thing. My mom, it's like a thing that younger siblings call their older siblings.
In
I just
Cuba?
call her Stephanie. Yeah, I
Mm.
guess. And I actually picked her name too. But she calls me Tata. My mom calls her older brother Tata.
Interesting. So that's like that's a cultural specific there, that like there are some words in Spanish and in different countries that are specific vocabulary for siblings, because it is a very complex relationship. It's very weird. It's like you share so much but are so different. You get along, you don't get along. Like it's like it's an interesting like tense relationship that needs a bunch of vocabulary on its own. You know, it's interesting because I think the whole concept of siblings is also like changing very drastically. Like my parents' generation, everyone was like one of 4 or 5 siblings, you know, and then I think for our generation it sort of started moving to like 3 and 2, and then our generation, we're having less kids by a lot. Like the average amount of kids in the US is 1.7. But then in Latin America it's still higher. The average is still around 2. And I do see it within my friend group. Like my friends that are in the States have less kids than those in Latin America. And I have like 2 theories, which is one, it's a lot cheaper to pay for childcare, to tener ayuda. But then simultaneously, a lot of these people live in countries where they have families. They have these redes of like help. They have like a village, you know, they have el tío, el primo, la abuela, which, you know, it's like versus a lot of my friends here in the States, which is like, all right, they had to leave their hometown and now they work somewhere else and they have no family here other than friends, and they got to fucking figure it out on their own. Healthcare isn't covered and this isn't covered. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot harder. And I'm so interested to see what this means for future generations and how they relate, because, you know, you had like the one child policy in China, right? And like that completely changed the entire like sociology of the country. And Latin America was like, oh, you know, it was countries that had like 5 and 6 kids at a time. And now we're decreasing to around 2. And then the US is decreasing to almost 1. It's like the concept of sibling is changing as we're living it.
Yeah. Speaking as someone who wants 0 kids. A lot of people in the entertainment industry, in my circles, a lot of them don't want kids. And if they do, it is usually 1, 2 max. I don't know many people that have 3 or more kids. But even with my grandparents, each set of grandparents only had 2 kids each.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I only have 2 blood uncles.
Oh, wow.
Blood uncles.
You blood uncles. You're not my political uncle. You're my blood uncle.
Yeah, and so I have 2 political aunts, 2 blood uncles, and 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I have only 4 first cousins.
Oh, my God.
Oh my God,
I
indeed.
have 24.
Oh my fucking God.
And can I tell you, I have 24 cousins, and I know, I mean, some I'm closer to than others, but I'll tell you, at least half of those, I know a lot. Like, I hang out with them. I know their shit. I took baths with them, even when it was like a little bit too old. It was a little bit inappropriate. I know these guys. These are like my other siblings. Like, I know them really well. They're like, como que I have my cousins. I grew up like thinking they were my siblings, basically.
Damn,
Specifically,
that's nice.
also because my siblings were so much older. I had so many cousins that were my age, and we grew up together. And it's because on one side, you know, my dad was one of 4. And then on the other, my mom was one of 5. And they each had a bunch of kids. And I think
Clearly.
about, like, y es como que the family structure, when it's that large, becomes like a clan. And I think it really does mix in with this. I think it's like part of Latin American sociology as it is in like other parts. Pero the concept of family being a clan and a village that helps raise other kids, and that like los primos go to the same camp, and then they get picked up by aunt and uncle after school, and it's like it is like kids is like raising a village, and therefore your cousins become almost like siblings.
Claro.
And that is very different than a lot of what I see here in the States.
Yeah, I wish I did have that bond. Like, there's so many videos out there about primos and like da-da-da. And I'm like, ooh, I did not have that experience. I will say, though, it's funny how life works, but I'm a lot closer to some of my third cousins because they're my age.
That's so Latino of you, dude.
It's very Latino. Like, I have a cousin named Kelly who is just a month older than me. But she was raised in North Carolina. She still lives in North Carolina. But she went to my wedding. She went to my wedding after not having seen her for almost a decade or more. But because we have that bond, like she and I, when she would visit Miami, we would hang out all the time. So to me, she was like my first cousin. And now I have another cousin who just came from Cuba, Mari Carmen, who is around my age as well. I think she's maybe a year or 2 older than me. She now lives in Florida, and I talk to her more than a lot of my first cousins. So, and I think she's technically a third cousin as well. So I just feel like in Latin American culture, there are no rules because I'm literally called Tia by all of my friends' kids who I have no, like, bloodlines to. Like, oh, Tia Jenny's calling. I'm like, Tia, like tia, like the word primo and tia and all that, you know, it's just thrown around.
The concept of tia and primos is like, it's almost a synonym to like clan. Like, oh yeah, like this is my tribe, this is my group. And it's crazy. I see a lot of similarities with immigrant populations here in the States. Like, I have a Polish friend whose entire family is Polish, and he grew up in Buffalo with all of his Polish family, and they have very like muy parecido a Latin American like family structures, where it's like, oh, the aunt of the uncle's aunt is his friend, and the aunt of the uncle takes care of the other kid who's not related to him, and it's like
my brain.
And I think that a lot of immigrants that arrived places had to have that in order to sort of survive in a new place. But then I think it's funny to see in Latin America, like it isn't immigrant population. It is just, that's the norm. And all my friends that already have kids and have more than 2, like they're all in Latino America, literally. I'm like old and childless in comparison to them. They're all like,
or Miami,
or Miami.
I mean,
yeah,
or Miami.
And I guess here, like a lot of my friends who are from other states and stuff, their friends have kids earlier and everything.
Because it's tough, you know. My mom got lucky because we were practically raised by my grandparents as well. And my mom always says it. She goes, if I had the money, I would have had a third. Like, my mom really wanted more kids. But I've seen all too often people be like, I only wanted 1 kid, but my husband is pressuring me to have a second. Or there's this weird pressure of like, my kid's gonna be bored. I'm like, that's not really a good reason to make a whole ass human being. Like, you just have to really want that second kid, not because, oh, my kid's gonna be bored. Because I'm gonna be honest, like, we're adults now, right? We know, I'm pretty sure between the 2 of us, we know a good amount of people who do not get along with their siblings. To the point that some of them are even mortal enemies. So you can't just bet on having multiple kids thinking that they're going to be like the goddamn Brady Bunch, because that's not always the case. Sometimes, like, it's sad and unfortunate, but I've seen it. Like, people who do not talk to their siblings.
And by the way, I mean, I love my siblings so much, and I'm so freaking happy and glad I have them. But when I say, hey, I think I might just want one kid, and then they're like, how could you do that to someone? How could you bring someone into this world?
That's so whack.
And not give them a sibling? And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking? It's as if I said, I want to bring a child into this world and leave him in a basket and put him in the river and just watch him go away. It's like, what are you saying to me?
It's called friends. It's called cousins. Like, they'll be just fine. I have a lot of friends who are only children. They were just fine.
And so when people say, like, how dare you bring an only kid into this world? Like, I know I'm not an only kid, but I sort of feel offended when I hear it, because for so much of my life, I grew up as an only kid. So, like, you're telling me only children are, like, fucked up and sad and miserable. And it's like, well, no, actually, like, I'm a hyphenated only child, little third child. Like, I am one of those. I it's almost like Venezuelan American. Like, I feel both.
Absolutely. I can see that.
I feel both. And there's just, it's just a different life experience that makes you just a person with a different background and a different upbringing. And I feel so bad because I love my sister so much, and she's going to hear this, and I just want to tell my sister I love her so much, and I'm so glad she's my sister. But it's like, you know, I just want to be clear about, like, this whole pressure for people to make siblings now, to have a kid and make it a sibling versus just it's like a weird pressure.
And I mean, I think the answer is pretty obvious. I think it is friendship. It can be cousins. But for me, right, like, my sister came 6 years later, and I remember distinctly what it was like having no siblings. And I really did want a sister. Like, I wanted a sibling pretty badly. But at the time, I had a best friend named Daniela, and we were literally one day apart. She was born the day before me, and we met in kindergarten, and we were pretty much inseparable our entire elementary school lives. We were the ones that who would have baths together. Like, I would have, like, she to me was like my sibling, my cousin, who I would take baths with. Obviously, I'm so grateful to have my sister in my life. But when I think about what would life have been like had I not been given a sibling, and I think about my best friend Daniela when I was a kid, and then the best friends I grew up with and the friends I have now, I'm like, I would have been okay. Because a lot of my friends are also like the siblings that I never had.
Yeah, but now with my cousins, like, I'm super close to, like, my little cousin Christian, who lives here. I feel like his big sister. Yeah. And I'm like, no, but I'm not his big sister. Like, I'm not. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I feel like his big sister. I'm not, like, literally his big sister, but I'm going to treat him like my little brother.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Yeah, and it's, like, quite wonderful to grow up and stop being, like, limited with what you perceive and what you're told, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, while me and you have, like, what is considered like a micro family for, like, old Latinos who all, like, came out of, like, 7 billion siblings. Like, my mom was the eldest, right? And she was literally like la mama of her brothers. Oh, not of her sisters, of her brothers. Like, my grandma would make my mom be a mom. Like, cook and servirle los platos and wash their clothes and do this. And then my mom, like, I think one age my mom was like, why? Like, I'm equal to them. Like, I'm not their babysitter, and I'm not their mom, and I'm not their maid. Like, my mom would have to serve her brother's dinner before she could serve herself. And they were, like, younger. She was like, I'm older. If there's a hierarchy, it's mine. But back then, and I think still in a lot of households, las hermanas, especially if they're older, are, like, immediate caretakers. Immediately. And I'm so thankful I'm not an older sister in this type of family. I would be the worst caretaker.
Oh, yeah, me too.
I kill a cactus. Like, I can't, you know, maybe once I'm a mom and I'm like, okay, I don't really have a choice here. Like, maybe I'll do it. But if I had to take care of, like, my brother at one point, like, he'd be dead by now. Poor guy.
Absolutely.
But why are sisters automatically, like, moms? It's like, bitch, the fuck?
Porque fucking patriarchy, sexist bullshit. I mean, I'm not shocked by any of this. My abuelo was one of 6 sisters. He was the only guy, and his dad died when he was 3.
Oh, wow.
So that was an interesting dynamic. And then on my grandma's side, she was one of like 8 or 9 siblings. My husband's worse. Like his mom and dad are like one of 14.
How do you have time for that?
I don't know. How do you have the vagina for that is truly the question I have.
I don't know.
It's like a portal.
That vagina should be in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Yeah, so, but that's really what happens is like the older siblings end up being the caretakers, but a lot of the time the women are the ones that do a lot of the cooking and the cleaning and the diaper changing.
If you have 14 siblings, that means you have like a 20-year age difference. And that's why in a lot of our culture, you have like, oh, my uncle's coming. He's 2 years old. It's like, what? How did that happen? It's like, oh yeah, I have a brother who's 25 years older than me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
there's these matices in some Latin families that like age makes no sense. There's like a time continuum obstruction. Like, it's like, how? But it's because of that.
That sounds like a show. My 2-year-old uncle.
Oh my God. Or, yeah, like, it's like inconsistent and not perfect a lot of the time. And I also feel like back then people had 15 kids because you were rolling a dice. Like, half of them died. The other half, like, got polio. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I mean, if you have 15, the chances of one coming out all right are higher. So now it's like, oh no, infant mortality is low. Oh, like, there's a lot of technology and science to help you take care of that one person. So the chances of you losing that kid are very low now. But back then, oh my God, my grandpa lost like 5 siblings.
Oh my God.
He was like one of 13 and he lost 5 siblings and they're like, oh, only 5 died, not so bad. And it's like,
oh
I mean,
my
that's pretty
God.
Yeah.
What are they, fucking colony of ants? Like, it's fine, we lose one, keep going.
Pretty much.
But call me an asshole, but if I was one of those older siblings that was born into a family of like 20 fucking kids and my parents are like, it's up to you now to change their diapers and to basically raise them, I'd be like, no, bitch. You fucking did this. You went to the fucking bedroom and fucking humped the shit out of each other, made another human being. That ain't my problem. Like, I think it's a little unfair to put that on your kids of like, well, no, now you have to cook and clean and clean caca and clean vomit and practically raise the child that we made. So then you can't even start your own goddamn life. That happened to my dad's father. He was one of also many sisters. He was like 10 or more years older than my grandma because he waited until all his sisters got married for him to get married. Mm-hmm. I'm like, hell no.
Wait, is it because he was like el hombre de la casa? There's always this concept of like,
like el hombre de la casa. He needs to make sure that all his sisters are taken care of, i.e. married to men. So he got married much older. I'm like, that's not fucking fair. As someone whose parents actually let me be who I am, that's just a thing that I'm very passionate about because I've seen so many people my age complain about how their parents held them back. And I don't think that's right. Like, let your kids fly out of the dang nest. That's not why else are you having kids for? To control them and keep them attached to you by the rib cage till you die? That's not healthy.
That's very Latino, though, because I feel like my American friends, they were dropped off at college, and the parents were like, see ya, bitch! And my mom was, like, crying.
That would be me. That would be me.
My mom was like, I bet I gotta get... I'm like, I'm literally, like, half an hour from your house, Mom. And then all my American friends, like, the parents are like, all right, well, have fun. We're converting your room to a fitness room now. And it's like this, like, ciao. I don't know. I think it's funny what you're saying. This, like, this family-oriented culture sometimes has this negative where it's like te aferras mucho a la familia and leaving is seen as a negative or like
I think like a healthy mix, right? Because my parents were a healthy mix. They weren't like see you later bitch. They were like sad and they cried, but they were also very supportive of my dreams and they were okay with me and my sister leaving to California. Because I have way too many Latino friends who say that their parents still guilt trip them. Like they abandoned the family. And I'm like, why the heck are you having kids for? Like, you need to let them live their lives to the fullest and follow their dreams.
You know, it's interesting. You saying this sort of reminded me of There's also this like untold family structure with siblings. So, for example, the firstborn male, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the family has a business, that's the one that's going to inherit the business. That's just like I saw it in my family with my
Wow.
grandpa and my older uncle. It was like he has to inherit the family business, and my uncle was like, I don't want to fucking do this. And I saw it like very similarly portrayed in a lot of other parts of my family where it's like, oh, the dad is a lawyer, the eldest son will also be a lawyer, and it's just this untold expectation for like every sibling has like their place. If there's a female sibling, she's gonna take care of the los abuelos when they get older, and she's gonna make sure that the parents are taken care of. And there's these unspoken rules among sibling places, and that I think are changing, but I see it a lot within my family, in the past generation. Okay, Jenny, to wrap up this podcast, I had an idea.
Okay.
I think we should give messages out to our siblings. I want to give a message out to my sister Carolina, who I know will listen to this podcast, that I love her so much. She's the best sister in the world, and I want her to come visit me. And since I know my brother is not going to listen to this podcast, I want to tell him, hey, sometimes you're wrong and I'm right, and I need you to like chill and listen to what I have to say before you assume you're right, Michelle. Oh my God. You're so annoying sometimes, but I love you.
I actually have a feeling my sister's going to listen to this one just because she's going to see a photo of her probably as the thumbnail. And she'll be like, oh, I better listen to this. Anyway, so Stephanie, if you're listening, I have known you for almost 29 years. It is about time that you let one rip. I've never heard my sister fart in my life.
Heard her fart?
She does not
What?
fart.
Oh my God.
I've always been the farter of the family, and I used to just let it rip all the time as a kid. Like, I'm farting. I'm with my family. My sister, I believe, does not have an asshole. So I'm actually complimenting you, Stephanie. I'm the gross one.
This is the way I am so shocked by this. Like, truly.
She's very dainty. My sister's just more dainty than me. She's very, like, she's classier than me. So, like, she also doesn't curse.
What the fuck? Oh, wow.
And
well, now her name is Stephanie?
Stephanie.
No, here you go, Stephanie. Hope you let it rip. Caro, I've heard you let one rip. And I don't know if I should say that. I feel like she'll be so